Well, hello and welcome to Blue Garden Cottage yet again. It's lovely to have you with us. I hope you're having a good day today. Yeah, no, this is not a garden week. I am not talking to you about the garden, but it is about the tool shed, or not the tool shed, the craft shed, or shall we say the craft studio. I found, when I came in last week, a pool of water on the inside windowsill. I went in to do a little bit of tidying up and spotted the water. So obviously the wind had been blowing the water inside at the back of the wood. So this week we took off these sills, have we chamfered it so it's at a slope to run the water away from the window, and we put in new sealant right the way around every little inch of wood so that the water wouldn't get in. But I think the wind has been blowing it in on the edges, so we've sealed all that up, every little inch, even along there, and every join has had sealant on it. I don't like this edge here. This is end grain, and I don't like the wind blowing rain into that. So come the summer though, that somebody gave us more than a year ago, year and a half ago already, so they'll be going in the summer. So that was just a temporary fix because this was sopping wet. So yep, the sealant has gone in to keep that dry for now. Oh, and hopefully, because I was worried about the fabric getting wet, and it did slightly, but it's drying out. Oh, it's nice to be in here again. It feels like a little bit of a retreat. So that is the windows. That have been the issue this week. Craft wise, I haven't done anything other than ripping up lots of fabric for the rag rug. I've collected 2 lots from people who've had some for me. Still need loads of blue though. There's just not enough blue around. So I might have to get some dye, fabric dye, and dye some of the plainer cotton fabrics in there to get some blues. I'd love some cobalt blue. That would be good. So I think I'll go and get some fabric dye and dye some of the fabric to get more blues. And also what's going to happen, I've got something to show you. Okay, give me a second, let me get it ready to show you. First of all, craft wise, it might not be crafts as in crafts for the fairs or anything when they start up again, which might not be this year for us, but this wood has been marked up, measured and marked up, ready to be cut to make me a tofu press. I've been waiting for that for a while, so Hubby's going to make me a lovely new tofu press, and that will be ready tomorrow hopefully. And I can show you what I do with that when it's done and when I'm using it. Other than that, on the craft front, hubby was busy cleaning his hand tools, his old-fashioned hand tools, his planes, the wooden block planes. He's been taking one a day and trying to sand it, clean it, sharpen, reset all the blades, fix any holes that needed fixing in the wood or anything like that. And of course today, for some reason, as he'd had it in the clamp, the blade, and his hand slipped and he stabbed himself with the end of the plane blade. I'll put a picture in here. So he came inside and the wound was deeper than skin. It was more than skin deep into the muscle, but not too deep, not so deep that we were willing to sit for hours waiting at A&E. Well, you don't sit at A&E waiting for hours anymore. You get an appointment now. You got to phone in first. You get an appointment and you go in for your appointment. And you're not there for very long because of COVID, and then trying to keep the waiting room as empty as possible. So but it wasn't worth going to A&E for something like that, that we could treat ourselves. Even though it would probably have needed some stitches, we thought, well, we've dealt with wounds like that in the past. But then I went looking for my first aid stuff. And it reminded me that I have not been so diligent in keeping up with first aid preparations, knowing that in this family, it's a wise thing to do. So I went and topped up. I got a box, a lunch box, because it's thermally lined. And that would be good to keep it safe in all weathers. So this is what it looks like. I got all the stuff that would be appropriate for us, for literally first aid stuff. There might be other emergencies at times that might need way more than first aid, but that would be a hospital job. So anything other than that that we could deal with ourselves at home, I've made sure. Going on history, the kind of injuries we've had to deal with in our home, in our family, so I know what would be needed. Actually, that needs to go somewhere else. I don't like that mess. There we go. So I have made sure, going on history, that we have butterfly strips for deeper cuts. And once I've got the wound closed, then, well, first obviously the alcohol wipes to clean it, to make sure it's clean. I have some iodine coming soon that would be going inside a wound for one that's slightly deeper than just skin deep. And that would make a grown man squeal because it burns that much, but it prevents infection. So iodine, very good, liquid iodine. So I've got that, and I have some silver, like a colloidal silver, I think it is. It's ionic silver, actually. Some ionic silver spray that helps quicken healing. So that will go on the surface once I have the butterfly strips closing the wound. Then I spray on that. Only need one strip just to pull the skin together, and then, well, depending on the length of the cut, and then the spray on it. And that also helps to seal the wound, keep infection out. I also have the TCP to help clean before I use the alcohol wipes. I have some new skin for very minor cuts and grazings. That will be like a plaster instead of the elastoplast. I have got the normal fabric plasters. I've got hand sanitizer for when I dress the wounds. I have bandages for when they are needed. Hopefully not, because that would be more scary than just a general cut. Some dressing tapes. I've got microporous tape. I have got wound dressings, tubey grips, and basically everything that should be enough to deal with minor little wounds and injuries should they happen, because even though they're minor, there does tend to be drips of blood going everywhere. So, oh yes, that reminds me, when he did cut himself and I couldn't find any of my dressings and stuff that I had, I eventually found something I could use to just keep it dressed until I got back. But before that, just to stop the bleeding, I remembered that because of being undercover, I have some herb robert that I potted up in the autumn, a small one. I potted that up, and it's still going right the way through the winter. And the self-heal, that's also undercover, and they have kept going. So because they were kept going, I was able to grab just a few leaves from each plant, mash it up in my fingers so that the juices started coming out, put that straight on the wound, and it stopped the bleeding within less than a minute. It stopped the bleeding, and it was bleeding quite a lot. So I remembered, garden first aid with your plants. I was glad I had that, and I remembered it. So good old plants that most people would think are weeds and rip them out. Herb robert, self-heal, stiptins, they stop bleeding. So, but of course I'd used raw plants that might have had other dust and stuff on them. So it was important for me to get the alcohol wipes and the sterile, the spray and cleaner stuff to make sure that no infection gets in. But I was really grateful to have plants in the garden that I could turn to just like that and use it for something like that. It's really great. I'm really grateful for that, and also for coming out of COVID and being very dehydrated for a long time, still are actually, even with drinking a lot of fluids. So it does have an effect on your stomach. And then I looked out the window after spending a small fortune on some Dalco Soft. I bought that for him and looked out the window and saw the rhubarb and thought, oh, how could you forget that? I had rhubarb. That's another first aid thing for little things like that, for little ailments. And I'm like, oh. So yes, sometimes all you need is right in front of you in your own home and garden. So there you go. It's nice to remember these things. I wish I'd remember them earlier. That reminds me with my memory. Remember I said before about my memory and that COVID affected both my intelligence and my memory. Well, I'll put a photograph in here. That was really funny to me because I only realized long past midday that I had opposite shoes on and had gone out twice, once to the supermarket and once to hairdressers, and not one person that I'd come across anywhere had even noticed that I had opposite shoes on. I couldn't believe it. I had to take a photograph to say that I had worn two totally opposite shoes. Didn't notice. They didn't feel any different whatsoever. They were perfectly comfortable. And what was weird was that at some point during the day, around about midday, no, before that, was about 11:30 in the morning, I realized that I didn't have socks on and the shoes were uncomfortable without socks. So I went and got socks and put the shoes back on again. Not once then did I notice that the shoes were not the same. Now I could excuse myself first thing in the morning because I got dressed in the dark and grabbed the shoes in the dark, you know. But then surely when it was light, you'd notice your feet had got the wrong shoes on. And when you put socks on and then put them straight back on again and don't notice. You've got to laugh at these things, haven't you? Yes. So between accidents, absent-mindedness, we are an eccentric bunch. That's just what I said in the past about the chaos of this family and this home. It's all hopefully going in my journal, if I remember, so that when my children and grandchildren read our journals later on, it would be worth a laugh on a bad day. Well, anyway, I have to go now. I need to go and get supper sorted and more fabric ripped up and make a start on that rag rug. And I'll show you that as soon as I get started on it. Well, I have got started, but I mean on the weft. The warp is on the weft I need starting. I just wanted to make sure I've got all the fabric ready so that the rugs, all 4 of them, look similar. Anyway, I hope that this is a reminder for you to have a look at your own household first aid kits to get things ready just in case somebody gets a nasty blister or a cut or a burn or a graze or hay fever or a cough or a cold, just for your seasonal, especially for seasonal. I think that's a good thing. I used to have a 72-hour emergency pack as well, and that's out of date now. That's just been taken apart and not put back together. So I think this year, amongst all the other things I'm stressing to get done in the projects, I think it's important this year to get a 72-hour emergency pack done and ready in the cupboard, so that's done. I've got a first aid kit now, so that's fine. Although I haven't got the inside, you know, the normal cold one with cold remedies and hay fever stuff, which I'm trying to get more to the natural ones and make my own tinctures and things like that. But in the meantime, I'll just do what we usually do the best as we've always done. Keeping up with our self-reliance, because it's part of self-reliance as well. So that will be part of next week's video. I think I'll do something to do with that, maybe. Or something to do with the food storage, because I've had to deal with some stuff with the food storage too. But that'll be next week. In this week, for the meantime, take a look at your cupboards. Check if you've got a first aid kit, everything ready that you might need for those little minor things. And it's just easier and handy to have things ready at hand. And get your own first aid kit ready. Yep. Alright people, gotta go. We have lovely weather out there. I'm sure you can hear the birds. I'm glad to be sitting in a dryer shed. Studio, let's not call it a shed. It's a studio. Let's get posh. Alright folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, have a wonderful day. And I shall see you again next week. Do take care. It's been lovely to chat with you. Bye.